Commission administrative meetings. Welcome and thank you for participating in the City of Helena City Commission administrative meeting. We are pleased to be able to provide this alternative meeting format in the city's effort to broaden public participation. Please be patient as we experience technical difficulties during the meeting. We welcome your public commentary. Please read the following tips and guidelines for the app usage and your participation. Commissioners, let's see. So, recommendations from Helena Citizens Council, HCC representative, I'm not sure, Lori, the sheriff, you have.
Mayor and City Commission, we don't really have recommendations today. We're working on our budget recommendations, and after this meeting, we'll get those voted on and to the commission, but nothing currently.
Thank you.
Thank you.
City manager report.
Mayor, I have no report this afternoon. Thanks.
Anything for the city attorney? We'll move along. City attorney, anything?
No, nothing to report. Thanks, Mayor.
Department reports. A draft ordinance to amend Title 11, Chapter 2, Table 1 of the City of Helena zoning regulation. Director Brink, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor and Commission. So we've got a couple items for me to discuss and bring forward to you this evening. The first being some changes to Chapter 2 of Title 11, which is zoning ordinance, Table 1. As customary, zoning documents a living document, right? So we're always recognizing needs to change and edit this document. 2 years ago, we brought forward ordinance 3304, some changes to the land use table and land use definitions. And you were gracious enough to approve those edits and those amendments to the zoning ordinance. However, there was one item that was missed, and we did not make the proper changes to what was reviewed by you and approved. And that is relative to the combination of general services and professional offices as one land use in the land use table. We did, however, separate those from the definition table, but we failed to separate them in the land use table. And because of that, it's caused some interpretation issues relative to some grandfathering issues that we've run into and how we manage that. So we recognize the need to separate those in the land use table, and we've done that, and that's what's being proposed. One key item that I want to highlight with that change is professional offices being not permitted in PLI, but we have allowed professional offices to be allowed in PLI. That is the only difference when we separated these. The reason for it, professional offices could support uses that are in PLI as ancillary uses, bonding offices, attorneys' offices, relative to some of the public uses in PLI. So we've drafted that or made a recommendation that we allow that as permitted use or use by right in PLI. Other than that, that's the simple change that we're proposing for Title 11, Chapter 2, Table 1, the land use table.
Thank you. Commissioner.
And for that one, Mayor and Commission, it's been legally noticed and it went to the Zoning Commission. Zoning Commission recommended approval of those changes. And we will bring this forward on Monday, June 3rd, which is coming up for first reading and passage. And we're going to ask as part of that motion to set the public hearing for this case July 15th. I think the packet of information you had June 19th, which is unfortunately a Wednesday, which is not a meeting date for you either, but it did not meet the 15-day notice requirement. We pushed it out to July 15th for the public hearing. And we'll make that as a motion on Monday evening. The next one, You allow me to go forward, Mayor?
You want to?
Keep going?
There are
All
questions?
questions? Absolutely. Yep.
Any questions? Do we have any public comments on this issue? Please continue, sir.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioner. I apologize for that. So the next item is an edit or amendment to Title 11, Chapter 40, which is titled The Establishment of Areas That Allow the Sale of Alcoholic Beverages in Casinos Within City Limits. So we are not touching the provisions as they're related to casinos. However, we are recommending some changes relative to our distancing requirements for establishments that sell alcoholic beverages and proposing some exemptions to those in certain zoning districts. So Montana Code annotated, specifically at Title 16, Chapter 3, Section 309, that lays out the alcoholic beverage and control divisions enforced and monitored location standards. But that same NCA section also provides that the city provides the city's ability to identify and set or not set our own distancing and location requirements for such premises. Currently, our city code, we reference the same distancing prohibitions that are in MCA, but we have altered slightly as the code allows how we measure establishments from schools. For example, the city, for us, we measure establishments from schools, closest boundary of the school property to the closest exterior edge of the licensed premises. MCA is 600 feet on the same street as a building used. We don't have that provision. It's just straight line distance. And it's measured from nearest entrance to nearest entrance. So that's one unique characteristic that we have, that we've taken or made use of the state statute to do our own thing, so to speak. So we are proposing several changes to this relative to providing an exception to the distancing requirements for those establishments in the downtown zoning district and the TR district, which is transitional residential district that surrounds the downtown district. We are asking that we add some language relative to how we measure to places of worship, which is in state statute, but we are asking to add this language to the proposed amendments to this chapter so that we can exclude it, if that makes sense. So the exemption would be that all licensed premises located within downtown zoning district and the TR transitional residential district be exempted from distancing requirements in those zoning districts. The reason for it, and I'll be quite frank and transparent, there are some businesses and establishments that have been licensed in the past that shouldn't have in violation of city code. We don't know why. I don't begin to understand why that has happened, but it has caused potential issues for new businesses that want to realize the same benefit that their competitors are realizing. So to make a level playing field within the downtown, we are proposing that we exempt those premises in the downtown zoning district and the TR district to be exempt from any distancing requirements from schools and places of worship.
Comments or questions from the commission? Public comments on this topic? Please continue, sir.
And then for this one too, Mayor, just wrap up again, just like the one previous, legally noticed, went to the zoning commission, recommended approval unanimously for that one. City commission, again, first reading Monday, and then we will ask for that motion to set the public hearing for July 15th.
Commission? Public comments on this topic? Madam Clerk, any online? I apologize for that. That's good.
I see no hands raised, no public comment online.
Please continue, sir. Or are you done?
One more, Mayor, if you'll allow me.
Please.
So this is the easy piece. You'll get tired of them on Monday when you see that agenda. So I'll make this quick. This is a more in-depth, a more detailed change that we're proposing. Of course, this is a draft ordinance amendment to the review process for the demolition of historic buildings. This has been an ongoing work product. We started it probably the fall of 2022. And through a lot of public engagement, public hearings, work with the HPO staff, the HTC, work sessions, several public hearings with that group, some back and forth, legal and our team at the city and then the team down at the county. We are proposing a set of amendments to this review process, which is located in Title III, Chapter 15 of City Code. Overall, this is an update to roles and responsibilities that are written in that section. And we also are trying to create a clear and concise set of definitions and then processes to minimize some differing interpretations and understanding of the program and processes from various staff. Just make it clear and concise what the roles are, and then some real clear and concise definitions and processes. So some of the notable changes that you'll see through this draft language is we've added some definitions, or we've retitled the ordinance. Previously, it's just a review of process, the demolition of historic buildings, but it didn't capture historic structures and sites. That's problematic because when you read the language of the ordinance, it didn't deal with buildings, it only dealt with structures, but it wasn't in the title, and we didn't have a definition of structures. So it became problematic. What exactly were we supposed to require the demolition approval of? Just for instance, a building as defined by the Secretary of Interior is any building for human habitation. Well, that wasn't in the standards. So we were applying that standard in the city, but we really shouldn't have been. We were applying it to structures, which are any engineered structure or like like a bridge, for instance, or the fire tower, for instance. That is what we thought the ordinance applied to, but that's not how it had been applied historically. And then we added a definition for site. So we added definitions for building, structure, and site, which is not in the current language, and also added some definitions for historic preservation officer, Heritage Tourism Council, and then the state historic preservation officer. And then we added building and sites to the actual definition of demolition. We've reworked the definition of demolition to speak more towards the partial or complete razing of a historic property rather than a simple alteration of the building. We became concerned that as historically interpreted that the re-roofing of a structure, the changing of doors and windows, by definition or interpretation, would require you to approve those. We don't think that was the intent of the demolition ordinance. So we made it clear currently that demolition only spoke towards the partial and complete razing of a historic property. And I'll conclude. I'll speak why we've taken this position. We've revamped the determination and review process and workflow, which has been kind of lacking. We have realigned all the processes and criteria that are similar to all of our other land use cases. So when you see a demo, a request to demo historic property come before you, the process should be as they are for any of our other land use cases, as well as the criteria for those approvals. We've added, this was a request of HPO staff and the HTC, we've added opportunity to conditionally approve a demolition of a historic property. And then we've added some additional requirements for the issuance of a historic demolition approval. So when something's approved, as it's going through the actual demo process, the owner, or building owner, property owner is required to submit certain paperwork documentation relative to documenting what's inside the building, documenting any salvageable material, taking photographs, which has not been the case with the current ordinance. So I'll speak to why we altered or redefine the definition of demolition to speak more towards the complete razing and partial of a historic property, is we want to potentially move our historic preservation program to be more centered towards historic preservation and set some. Right now, we just have guidelines for historic preservation in the city. We have no restrictions, no standards or requirements for historic preservation. And I think city staff, community development staff, as well as HPO staff want to start moving in a direction to setting some codified standards for historic preservation to some of our buildings. So that's why we define demolition as the razing of a building, whereas altering a facade or changing windows may be part of a new set of potentially a new set of historic preservation requirements in the future. So that's why the shift towards what we defined as a demolition. So just some background. The HTC has had several work sessions and public hearings through their process, November, January, and March of this year, where they recommended approval of some language that is before you. There is some additional language edits that have come from the city attorney's office, which doesn't change the substance of the requirements. It just kind of retools some of the end and then clears up some grammatical errors in the draft. Again, on Monday, we're going to ask that you consider first reading of this document and set the public hearing again for July 15th of 2024. And that's all I have. I know that was quick. So that was really detailed. I didn't want to gloss through the historic preservation. Spent a lot of time on that, but we'll spend some more time on Monday, and then at the public hearing, providing some more detailed and presentations for that draft, that amendment.
Thank you, Dr. Brink. Commissioner Dean.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I just want to say thank you to Governor Dr. Needs to be staff and board members, because I know this has been a huge undertaking. And even though the paper only occurred in like 2022, we've been talking about it since 2020. And I am thrilled that we are finally getting this updated. I'm not going to belabor all my points because we have a big meeting, and I did send an email to community development that maybe after the meeting the clerk's office can maybe forward to the rest of the commission. But just a couple of things I wanted to note. We do not have included in this any provisions regarding demolition by neglect, which I think is a really important topic, especially given how many properties in our community are now being purchased and owned by out-of-state or non-local entities and individuals that may have an incentive to let a property fall into a historic property fall into disrepair in order to raise it and build something else. I really like that we're moving in a direction of developing some standards for historic preservation. So maybe that's the appropriate place to have that conversation and implement an ordinance or something like that. I think that we could, in Helena, maybe be a leader in that instance, especially given some of the demolition by neglect that we've seen in other communities in Montana. Just even in Butte, we see it a lot as of late, where properties or owners will let it fall to a state where it's not safe for anyone, and then it's demolished and nothing is done to preserve that history. So I really would like to see that conversation happen, and if that needs to happen in another ordinance or some conversation, I'm okay with that. The other piece is and I put this in my email to the community development staff, I think that it would be worth including the historic district definition. It says it's historic districts designated by SHPO. I think it'd be worthwhile for us to add and designated by the city of Helena and Lewis and Clark County, just for us to be able to create a framework to move forward in adding additional properties, because in the initial SHPO surveys, there were a lot of buildings and sites that were missed. Not, you know, in a malicious manner, but just a lot was happening in those surveys supposed to occur. So I think it would be worthwhile for us to at least set up something in this ordinance so that we have a framework in the future to get properties included that should have been, that were not. And then just my final comment is, I think this is a lot bigger than just like adopting a simple ordinance. I mean, I think we're finally, more than 50 years later, being prepared to be proactive and not having the same type of tragedies really occur as did during urban renewal. And I think this is, you know, a really good step for us to learn from those. I mean, I think first demolition permit was a good, you know, it was an attempt. We've learned a lot since then, and I'm excited that we're finally going to be moving forward with this one in some sense, and super grateful for all the work on it. So that's it.
Thank you. Any public comments on the
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I'd just like to speak in support of the ideas that have been raised by Commissioner Dean in support of trying to address demolition by neglect. As I walked over here for this meeting, I walked by the house at Broadway and Rodney, which was burned in early 2019. And it appears that, you know, birds are getting inside and so on. I think that is an out-of-state owner who has not been taking care of that property. And I expect that someday it's going to fall down unless some action is taken. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Commissioner.
Madam Clerk, any online?
Sir, could you state your name for the record, please?
Yes, Mark Schuberman.
Thank you.
I can spell it for you later.
Thank you. Mayor, I see no hands raised, no public comment.
Thank you. Mr. Director Brink, are you done?
Mayor, Commissioner, could I kind of speak to the demolition by neglect and why we did not include that? So Mayor, Commission, I heard that loud and clear from both the HTC public comment that we received during the process and HPO staff. The problem with demolition by neglect, there has to be a violation of something. We have no codified standards for historic preservation. So there's neglect, there's no neglect of standards. So I can't include demolition by neglect in the demo ordinance. That's why the other piece becomes so important. Is we have to set some standards and requirements for historic preservation before we can start enforcing a demolition by neglect, because it's a violation, essentially, right? So a violation of some code. So that's why you don't see that in the demo, is because we have no standards to compare or enforce that against. So that's why that's not in these amendments. But you know, we're here. We'll include it. Definitely. Yep.
All right. Transportation system, impact discussion. To not be or
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioner. So we're here to discuss the impact, the non-motorized transportation advisory committee. It was originally established by resolution back in 2008. And that was through a recommendation through the long range transportation plan, which was through the TCC, which has been recently dissolved. Well, not recently, it's been dissolved for quite some time now. It seems like quite a short time, but anyways, part of that establishing resolution talked about, and I'll just say in the beginning of that establishing resolution, they referenced the Greater Helena Area Comprehensive Transportation Plan. That's just the LRTP, the Long Range Transportation Plan. But it went also through that it was to advise the commission and to advise the neighborhood transportation program. That program was it started in 2008 and was no longer in existence by 2013. I don't have all the details of why that program went away, but anyways, so through our current process that we're going through, the MPO process, you know, we surpassed that 50,000 population threshold that that the feds require those municipalities to become MPOs then. And through the MPO, there's many changes to the LRTP. As the mayor,
Using these acronyms, you know.
I'm sorry, the Metropolitan Planning Organization.
Thank you.
As the mayor, we had a meeting this morning, and it went through the different options or the different requirements of the long-range transportation plan as an MPO versus what we were before. And then through the agreements that were recently approved by the commission, there's part in there, there's a 2.5% set aside for and I'm gonna get it wrong, so I'm gonna look it up here, the safe and accessible transportation options. Well, that is through the fact sheet for the FHWA. In layman's terms, it's a complete street standards or policy, meaning standards or policies that ensure the safe and adequate accommodation for all users of the transportation system, including pedestrians, bicyclists, public transportation users, children, older individuals, and so on and so forth. So, and it's our belief that as MTAC has grown with the city, we've also kind of grown out of that committee, that with the MPO being in place and the requirements through the MPO, and there's other planning documents. Unfortunately, we're right at the beginning of it, so we have to start with our LRTP update, and then that'll lead into some of these other plans as far as, you know, transportation, mobility, and so on and so forth. So, you know, part of this discussion is, do we amend the establishing resolution to accommodate the requirements of the MPO, or, you know, is there the option to look at a bigger regional program, or you know, moving forward to that bigger regional view of the MPO? And that's why we wanted to bring it forward to you to have some a question dialogue if for you.
Thank you. There are comments or questions from the commission?
Mr. Mayor.
Please.
Thank you. So does the greater in the authorizing resolution, it refers to the greater Helena area comprehensive transportation plan. Does it substantively differ from the LRTP?
Mayor and commissioners, no, not when we were not an MPO. The MPO's long range transportation plan will have some of the same elements, but there's other requirements, like we have to have some fiscally constrained prioritized projects in there. There's other elements in that plan that have to be analyzed for the region, not just I mean, we were looking at the entire region as far as LRTP, but now we have to be a little bit more focused to make sure that we're interconnected between the county, East Helena, and the city of Helena. So the elements that were in there will still remain, but there'll be more extensive analysis and some additional analysis that will be in the new LRTP once we get established and are able to use our PL funds that come with the MPO.
Follow-up, I mean, actually two, I think. So the neighborhood transportation program, you said sort of discontinued practically in about a decade ago.
Mayor and Commissioner, yes, it was established right around 2008 and ran for about 5 years, is what my understanding.
And it seems like we've transitioned to the MPO model, and in that context, the interests and areas of consideration that were undertaken by MTAC will be part of the MPO planning.
So, Mayor and Commissioners, yes, there's a non-motorized at-large member as a voting member on the technical advisory committee. There's also on the technical advisory committee, the ADA coordinator is on there. Planners from all the different municipalities will be on there, including the state. So this is a federally mandated program, so all those accessibility and all the different programs at the federal level that are required will now trickle down to our regional look in our valley here.
Sure, I'm happy to go first. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we're being asked, do we keep NMTech with an update to their bylaws in their current format, or do we dissolve it and fold it into an MPO? Is that roughly accurate?
So Mayor and Commissioners, roughly, the TAC, the Technical Advisory Committee for the MPO, which has those members on there, they could expand their membership if they wish. They could do subcommittees to advise on non-motorized or other issues. So I think it's a more regional look. There's a lot more players at the table to bring some of that knowledge in. And so, yes.
A couple of federal players also, right?
Yes.
If I might, just to follow up, I think I appreciate the bigger, more regional perspective in the subcommittees. I am slightly concerned about losing our local focus and our local expertise. So I think my initial preference would be to update the bylaws of NMTech to be in line with all of our bylaw revisions, but to maintain some sort of a local group that could then inform subcommittees, which we don't know what they're going to look like or when. But I would say the momentum of NMTech and their years of work and experience, if we sort of go into a holding pattern, waiting for a more regional thing that they may or may not have the opportunity to serve on, I feel like we might be missing some of that. So my preference right now would be to update NMTech. Why does that acronym be so hard? In order to have a local focus group to feed into the MPO. And then sort of reevaluate once the MPO is up and functioning and the TAC is up and functioning to see if it's become redundant and we no longer need that, and if local interests are able to be represented there. Thanks.
So, Mr. Mayor, a question for Commissioner Reed. So
Yeah.
do you see that updated and impact reporting to the MPO or to the City Commission?
Again, the timelines are a little fuzzy to me, but since the MPO started this morning, I would say beginning now, it would be the City Commission. And then maybe 6 months from now, if the MPO is up and functioning and there is a TAC and there is someone to report to, we could reevaluate. But I do think it's going to take a little time, and I worry about, again, the regional focus versus the local focus. That is a concern, and it may be that NMTech advises on purely local things and reports to the City Commission on those. It's hard to envision since MPO started this morning. I think that's my concerns.
But we have the regional focus has members from each region, like Helena. They have the mayor, they have the planner, development. So those people will be looking at issues or development from their particular area and bring it to the MPO.
Sure.
So the interest is still represented. Is what I want to say.
Yeah.
I might just say, just in terms of staff trying to get the thoughts of the commission, I guess I'd be interested more in the idea as Commissioner Reed put it, folding this in MTAC. It seems like MPO is the place or the arena where these issues are going to be taken up, and to have two different essentially planning organizations, well, it seems a little redundant and then possibly could conflict. And so my preference would be that these discussions take place, given that we're in the MPO arena now, that's where they should be taking place. Personally, that's where I'm at.
Any other comments from the please go ahead.
I want to give everyone else. Mr. Mayor, Director Knopke, so my thoughts right now, I am less concerned about this transition period. I think my biggest concern is that I want to ensure that And I know our staff negotiated very hard and through a lot of disagreement in developing the NPO documents to get a non-motorized representative, voting representative on the TAC. The TAC, right? The Technical Advisory Committee. And so I don't want us to fall into a position where non-motorized becomes something that's separate from the decisions of the NPO. I think that, you know, as a city, we've worked pretty hard to make sure that non-motorized is like part of the full picture of transportation. It's not a separate thing. It's not, you know, automobiles and non-motorized. We should all be thinking of it as one thing. And how do you accommodate the multimodal nature of our community and improve it? And so I would be in favor of, and I don't necessarily have a strong opinion about this transition period, but I really would like for the NPO to at least be thinking about where are the gaps in knowledge when it comes to non-motorized expertise. And so that we can be as effective as possible in the NPO. And, you know, I guess I have less of a preference about what happens in the interim. I just really want to make sure that once the NPO is in the midst of developing the long-range transportation plan, that if there are gaps in knowledge, that we can identify those and lean on non-motorized expertise to fill in those gaps. But I really think it has to be part and parcel of what transportation is in our community, not a separate entity.
Please.
So Mayor and Commissioners, I agree. And I think that, you know, in the updating of our long range transportation plan, you know, we can dedicate a chapter to non-motorized recommendations or what, you know, whatever that looks like, so that those stakeholder groups have their voice within the long range transportation plan. So, and that long range transportation plan is what guides not only the MPO, but the city in their upcoming projects. And if we, you know, establish non-motorized goals, requirements in that document, then they would be rolled into those upcoming projects.
Just to follow up, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess what my ideal scenario would be to have NMTAC and its expertise and its knowledge somehow absorbed in as a subcommittee, or for the TAC to have access to that knowledge. But I know we're not quite there yet. So do you have a suggestion for how we might maintain the momentum of NMTAC in order to fit in with their expertise? I understand there's one representative, but I think we have quite a number of engaged community members who would like to keep moving forward and who may not understand how to access the one or all the new mechanisms. So is there a logical trajectory for NMTAC to be a subcommittee of the TAC under the MPO that you can see?
Mayor and Commission, I can see a subcommittee for non-motorized being under the TAC. But as the MPO is, it's all three entities. So that subcommittee would have to have representation, in my mind, from all three of them, so that so we don't have at the city limit line something and then something different at the county or East Helena. But I do think that, you know, with the interest with the non-motorized within for commuters, but also the South Hills, that is one of the probably subcommittees that we might see. City of Missoula has a mobility plan that is produced by the MPO that can be adopted by the city to use as we would have input on it.
Yes.
Mayor, if I may, I got a question. It's my understanding, Director, that the MPO also makes financial recommendations on how federal dollars and state dollars are going to be allocated. So however we coordinate and organize non-motorized transportation for multimodal planning and discussions, it's also important from a regional basis with the board that money and recommendations attached to that. So I think formalizing it somehow in the MPO makes perfect sense from a planning and financial perspective.
Well, Mayor, I would just add, I think I mean, the NPO is the whole reason we're waiting to apply for the Safe Streets for All grant so that we can, hopefully get a few $1 million to implement sidewalks program across this community. So I think that NPO really is the key that turns a lot of the funding mechanism.
Any others? You have any on this topic? Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, my name is Ann Houserath. We moved here a couple of years ago from Boise. I served on the Boise City Council. I appreciate all of your efforts. I'm sure the job is much harder than it was for me in the 90s. During that time, I served on the policy board for the MPO. First Ada County, then Ada and Canyon County. During that time, we also had a bicycle advisory committee and a pedestrian advisory committee. So I urge you really to think carefully about the role that citizen volunteers can play. You're about to hear how tight, I know how tight your budgets are. I don't know as much as you do. We volunteers care passionately. I've been a bicycle commuter since I was 11. You can do the arithmetic. I have grandchildren. And the MPO takes a large regional look. It is not going to be looking at this local street or this school, how you get there. There are so many things that engaged citizens can do at the local level that you can figure out connecting. But the MPO is not going to replace your jobs in dealing with the Helena streets, right? You're going to be coordinating regionally, but it's not going to replace that. And I urge you, I've been attending the MPO, the non-motorized travel advisory council meetings since August. And I think that there is a role for a Helena-based citizen advocacy advisal to you. This is not, the MTAC doesn't make decisions. It advises you. And I think that I would urge you to think about, if it isn't continuing that committee, how are you going to engage and get advice? Because you all, I saw how many pages you all read every week, right? Let us volunteers who care passionately about sidewalks and bicycling, let us have a role in looking at the minutiae, which the MPO is not going to look at. So anyway, I urge you to look at keeping some version of citizen advocacy as you engage with the MPO. Thanks.
Thank you. Do you have any other comments? Madam Clerk, any online?
I do have Lowell Chandler's hand up.
Hi, Mr. Mayor and commissioners. I don't want to repeat a whole lot of what Ms. Houserath just said. Entirely agree with what she said.
We did, but we can't hear them.
Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay?
Mr. Chandler, I see that your hand is raised, but we're not able to hear you. You could also type your comments into the chat, and I'd be happy to read them into the record for you.
You can't hear me at all?
Try and again.
Okay. Hello? Can you hear me? Hello?
Okay, Madam Clerk, we'll come back when you can get the technical difficulties settled. Thank you. Yanaki, are you?
Hello?
Mayor and Commission, we'll be bringing this forward to a future commission meeting for your consideration. I think we've heard our marching orders. So.
Okay. Thank you. Transportation Systems, Proposed Parking Committee, Director Kanaki.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. As you well are all aware, there's great discussion about parking downtown with the downtown business parking division. And in the memo, I gave kind of a synopsis of the history of parking starting back in 1970 officially. But we ran across a photo from back in the 50s that had parking meters along Last Chance Gulch, which is now the walking mall. So pretty interesting photo. So as you're aware, the Parking Commission was dissolved back in 2019. And since then, it's been just conversations back and forth between downtown businesses, BID, PHI, and the city. The BID recently came to the city with the recommendation of creating a advisory parking committee, not a commission, but just a committee to hear the concerns of downtown businesses or residents, have that discussion, then have the discussion with the city. With the city is all in favor of this parking advisory committee. I did draft a resolution that didn't make it into the packet, but I'll make sure that makes it into the minutes. I handed that out. Long and short, it is kind of a copy and paste from the original advisory parking committee that was established for the city back. That is noted in that resolution is the recommendation from the BID, which is one representative from the BID board, one representative that is a property owner but not on the BID board, one downtown business representative, one member of the general public, and one representative of parking. And that would make up this advisory board that would hear
Committee.
Yes, committee, sorry. And that would hear resident and downtown businesses or whoever's concerned, complaints, and then that committee and the city would work through those issues and try to come to an agreeable resolution for those. So I would be happy to answer any questions about the formation of this new committee.
Commissioner Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is great. I was at one of the meetings where this idea was brought forward. I think it's a really good effort. I think it's going to help provide a forum. And I do think looking at the resolution, section 8(4), to provide input for Helena City Commission regarding annual budget allocations and parking pricing policies. I think that's a great thing to discuss. And I do think, given that we're considering this resolution today and the parking budget today, the timing is not ideal. I will, in the transportation budget discussion or parking discussion, be proposing something that would allow the parking committee, as it formed, should we agree to it, to have something to work with for this budget cycle. Because I do think it is an issue we have heard over and over and over and over again. And I am really grateful that we're moving quickly to provide both a forum and an opportunity for residents to work with us on how to address this issue. So I appreciate the quick work on this. I appreciate everyone coming together and trying to find some solutions.
Any other comments from the commission?
Mr. Mayor, thanks. I am definitely in favor of this. I'm not, and I don't know, and I didn't see in the packet, but I don't recall, and then putting on the commission, and why the the parking commission, I guess, was dissolved. And I read the packet. I actually did not know that the city took control of the commission back from the BID in April 2019, and then a month later dissolved it. That was news to me, and so really interesting to, I think, get like the full picture. I'm excited to see where this goes, and also if there are other ideas about how to be cost effective in implementing parking downtown. I think there's always the push and pull of businesses who want enforcement, so that there are, and I think that was part of the emphasis of in 2019 when they put in the kiosks, of not wanting people to be camped out in front of businesses all day long and not turning over their parking spots. But enforcement also costs money, and so having a revenue stream to pay for that enforcement, I think, is always questionable. That I think is difficult and why we're here. It costs money to maintain lots and parking garages and the rest. So I'm anxious to see kind of where the parking commission or the parking advisory board goes. I know that it was from past members of the parking commission, I think that was felt it was fairly effective to at least have a venue to talk about difficulties. And I would love if we could get to a place where folks feel like this is something that's responsive, where we meet our obligations in terms of the cost of actually maintaining parking lots and having code enforcement or parking enforcement. So anxious to see where that goes, but really appreciate all the work, and I'll be thrilled once our kiosks are paid off.
And then what would happen when the kiosk paid up?
We have lots of ideas.
Commissioner.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Director Kanaki, thank you very much for your quick work on this, working with the city attorney's office and the city manager's office. I appreciate the manager being willing to work with the business improvement district, the businesses of downtown that are members and non-members. Some are in the room today where we've heard the frustrations, we've been to the meetings, we get the emails, the texts and the calls, and we welcome that. I want to encourage that involvement, because this is how stuff gets done, is where we work together. Your voices are, this isn't the end, this is the first step, is this committee, this advisory committee, to where there'll be a forum for these individuals, the businesses of downtown, because for the last few years, you've been affected by the kiosks and the decisions that were made 5-6 years ago. And those are something, unintended consequences, and that's why we want to try and fix that. This isn't the first, like Commissioner Dean said, we've got some ideas on how to pay down some of those decisions that were made, like the kiosks, but for today being about the committee, I appreciate the quick work that was done. I know it's probably not fast enough for folks, but we do have protocols that we have to go through legally and such, but I look forward to the discussions and want to hear hear the ideas that you bring forth. So thank you, Megan, for being here, for what you're doing. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, just like to say I'm supportive of the idea of the parking advisory board. I was wondering if there's what the difference between. I was kind of like Commissioner Dean. I tried to figure out why the parking commission was dissolved in the first place, and it was not entirely clear from the minutes as to why it was. I see a significant difference between the commission and an advisory parking commission as it was formed then and what we're considering now.
Yeah, Mayor and Commissioners, I do. Because back in, let's see, what was it? There was a time that the Helena the City Commission granted the Helena Parking Commission the authority to basically enter into financial obligations to improve theirs, but they had that legal authority. So that's just one of the examples that is different between this advisory board and the parking commission of old. The makeup is a bit different. Towards the end there of the parking commission, it was kind of the BID board was the de facto parking commission. This new member makeup is a little bit more broad and capturing kind of all aspects of the parking downtown. So, I think this is a good first step to create this board. And then I think if at a later date there needs to be expanded duties or expanded authority, then we can bring that up and you can consider that at that point. But I think this is a great first step to start addressing some of these issues.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other comments from the commission? Any comments on this topic?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Megan Helton with CBID. Director Knopke, thank you for getting this done so quickly. We did also include a representative from a residential permit holder on the board, so I'd like to include that in the resolution as well.
Yeah, so that's for the. Yes.
Hi, my name's Bobby Lambertson. My business, Bobby Salon, located in the livestock building for the past 17 years, 18 on Saturday. When I first moved downtown, the parking was a challenge for me and my clients. Was not as much of a challenge as it is today. 2-hour free parking was easy to find. When the kiosk went in, I lost a number of clients and most are still complaining about it today. As an employee of downtown, things have become a financial burden. I cannot buy a parking permit that takes into account that I only work 3 days a week. I have to buy a 5-day-a-week monthly permit. I cannot pay online, so I have to take time off, which is a loss of income, to get to the parking office during their limited hours. I'm only one person, so imagine a business who has 5 employees or more. And the monthly permits are $60, $70, or $85 a month. Doing business downtown is a challenge with all the box stores and discounted outlets with easy access and free parking. My prices have to be higher to cover all my expenses, including parking. The simple solution is to give downtown employees their own parking lots with a low enough flexible fee to encourage us to park there. It would be financially helpful for businesses who are trying to buy permits for all of their employees. To bring shoppers back to downtown, reinstate free parking on the main corridors, Last Chance Gulch and Park Avenue.
Another 30 seconds.
I wonder how many people skip a cup of coffee because of the hassle of kiosks. And most importantly, please ask your downtown businesses, because you do not have a representative anymore that the DHI is gone, what they need to thrive. Take the time, send out surveys, buy mailing lists, walk the street, keep us informed. Stop making decisions for us who are downtown without asking first. The current parking policies and practices are breaking the back of the most important asset of downtown, businesses like mine. Please do the right thing. Thank you very much.
Nothing ever comes to you. Let me stop it. Being online, Madam Clerk.
Mayor, I still have Lowell Chandler when it's appropriate. No other.
Can you put him through now?
Yes.
Please.
Hello, can you hear me? Are you able to hear me? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Using up his time.
I know.
Hello?
They can hear him online, but I'm not quite sure why we can't hear him in here. So I apologize.
So can he send it through the chat and you read it into the record?
Yes, he has done that. So he said, this is a written comment from Lowell Chandler. I strongly agree with Ms. Houserath and disagree with dissolving the NM TAC Advisory Board. The MPO plays a key role in regional transportation planning and allocation of federal funding, while the City of Helena Transportation Department will still maintain authority over the design and management of city streets and roads within their jurisdiction. And MTAC remains relevant and should not be dissolved. Respectfully, the city and the commission should be working to encourage citizen involvement in decision-making processes. Dissolving an MTAC would be the wrong decision for Helenans. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. No, Director Knopke, are you done now?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. FY25 budget presentation, transportation system, parks, open space, and recreation. Director Danielson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor and Commission. Tonight we have 2 division department presentations, and we will start with transportation services and then move on to parks, recreation, and open lands. I will turn it over to Director Knopke at this time.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners.
Just getting, my whole introduction part. Wow. Mayor and Commissioners, so we're hoping to blow you away with our opening there as it's a win our thing, but it's okay.
I tried to fix that so that I wanted to steal his thunder away.
Put as many quirks in here for you as I could using the old. So, this is our budget presentation for the transportation system. So as y'all, I'm sure are aware, but we'll recap. We have our streets, traffic, signal maintenance, roadway code enforcement divisions. We also have the fleet city shop out there, our parking division, and our capital transit. Now we go. Yeah, you drive, so make sure it does everything you want it to do. Okay, so starting out in the street and traffic area. Yeah, so under operational considerations, with recent changes in legislation, we used to have the 240 gas tax and 241 BARSA accounts. With recent legislation, they rolled that BARSA account into gas tax. So 241 will essentially go away. And then our funds 201 and 240 will continue to work together, covering operations, vehicle equipment and capital, while 240 covers our pavement preservation operations, our mill and overlay, our chip seals, our crack seals, and so forth. No full reconstruction in the near future, but we are working on the mini malfunction design to take that multi-leg intersection with signalized intersection and turn it into a roundabout. And then that center of that roundabout being a gateway piece into the downtown. Some of the examples were, a mini fire tower in the middle or something that represents the downtown as a gateway corridor there. And then we have our street maintenance purview will be from back curb, except for our annual ADA ramp program is and where necessary for mill and overlays. So. Okay, so starting at 201, you'll see there's some highlighted stuff here. So in the packet, there was a couple of errors, nothing affecting our actual FY25 proposed budgets. The errors were in the FY24 numbers. There was one in the 201 fund, there was $120,000. The amendment we did back in December for the additional LiDAR assets. It was just duplicated in two accounts in there. So I took it out of there. So these are the actual numbers for FY24 projections. And then FY25 preliminary budget, about 8.8 million. Revenue about 8.9, so putting a little bit away. That's kind of on purpose. So every year, the last couple of years, you'll see we either overspend or underspend a little bit, and some of that is to make sure we have reserves for some of those larger projects that are going to come up, like the roundabout, so that we make sure we have the reserves to cover those when the time comes. Estimated beginning and ending cash balances, pretty healthy for our fund, which is that first bullet point there, no rate or change increases to our methodology for street maintenance this year. So the prime difference from our FY24 to the adopted is the $1.3 million raise grant anticipation, and then there we did have some $300,000 worth of interest from our reserves. Notable expenditures, again, the raise grant. We have one reclassification, one supervisor to superintendent. We're requesting reclassifying of several operators from current grade of 137 to a 139. dependent upon their qualifications. There are some differences between a 137 and 139, obviously, and until those qualifications are met, they wouldn't be reclassified if the proposal is approved. And then our capital includes pavement roller, plow trucks, de-icing truck, and sweepers, and design of the storage building for that equipment is what we have on the horizon for streets. Questions on this fund before we?
Mr. Mayor,
next one.
You mentioned interest. Does the interest earned stay in that fund? Is that true across? Okay, thanks.
Mr. Mayor, this is just a really quick question. The 201 fund. There are two parts. One is we have $65,000 in here for town and winter snow operations. Those aren't contracted with the ID.
Mayor and Commissioners, no, those are for the removal of the snow periodically during the winter.
Okay, and then my other question was on the 50,000 for traffic calming evaluation and implementation.
Mayor and Commissioner, so previously we never had money there to, if we were to receive a traffic calming application that as we proceeded met all the requirements, we didn't have money for implementation. So this would keep that process going. If they were a smaller project, then these funds could potentially accommodate that. And then if it was a larger project, obviously would turn into a capital project that would have to be budgeted for in an upcoming fiscal year.
I think that's an awesome inclusion, so thanks.
Mr. Mayor, just to follow up to Commissioner Dean's question, if I might, just for public who's listening, when you say a traffic calming application, is that like a resident who says we have an area of high traffic? We've seen some public comment emails come in about that. So could you explain a little bit about how that works?
So Mayor and Commissioner, so our the city has adopted a traffic calming program many years ago. And through that, there's an application packet, and then there's a packet that kind of explains the program. But long and short of it, if a city block or an individual resident or an intersection residents want to see traffic calming, they can submit this application, and part of that is for them to identify the area that they want to see traffic calming in. They get there's part of that packet is a petition for those people within that boundary to sign saying that they're in agreement. The city goes through its steps of counting cars or whatever is needed for their request. And then if it meets certain criteria within the program, then it moves on to the second step, which is further investigation and potential design. And depending upon the level of it meeting the requirements, it will depend upon the level that the city would participate. For example, if we had a intersection that was requesting curb extensions or something to help with traffic calming, and it didn't meet the criteria of the program, that doesn't preclude those residents from not installing the curb extensions if they still feel very passionately about it. We just go down a different route through an SID, and then those participating in that traffic calming area would share those costs for those improvements. But on the flip side, if the our evaluation showed that there was an issue, then we would continue through, which would then show how much participation the city was going to need, partial versus full participation. So,
any other comments from the commission? Okay, please continue.
And commissioners, moving into gas tax. So looking at the current year, about $3 million in our budget, which includes all the carryovers from other ongoing projects. Coming up for FY25, about 1.5 million in expenses, and our anticipated 1.4, a little more than 1.4 in revenue. So that's again the combined old gas tax and BARSA, all is one number in that one space. So about $100,000 of expense over revenue, and again, that's Also on purpose, this money is meant to be spent. We're not meant to have a large reserve in the gas tax money. It's paid out. They want you to use it to fix roads, streets, and houses.
Yeah, so apportionment is a result of the recent legislation as we've talked about before. And like Chris said, this involves all our pavement preservation, our chip seal, mill and overlay, our crack seal. And obviously from year to year, we may be doing more mill and overlay or chip seal or vice versa, just kind of depending on the areas of town that we're working in. And yeah, if you have any questions on gas tax, I'm happy to answer them.
Questions from the commission? Please continue.
All right, quickly through the old Barca, you can see there's no revenue and expenses. There's about $30,000 left in there now, and we'll just have that transferred to the 240 as whatever's left over. Going into our fleet operation, where this one that does have a couple of decent changes to it this year. One, we're discontinuing the NAPA IBS program as it exists now. It was not a bad program, but it wasn't really producing the amount of savings that we were expecting it to along the way. So we are planning to still continue a relationship with NAPA, and we'll figure out how that works going forward. But for the time being, the program, which came with about $100,000 a year worth of a contractual expense, will be going away. And then we're also implementing some new software to help the rest of the city departments to make it that much easier for them to get maintenance in. If they need a repair done, they can schedule that online with us. They'll get a spot in line and just be notified when to bring it up. So looking at the current year, about $2.4 million total. Looking forward to next year, about 3.4, and we'll get into the difference. It's pretty much one expense in there. Matching revenues, almost a little bit more revenue than expenses, putting about $40,000 or so back into reserves. And traditionally, this fund has been underfunded. So if you look at the last couple of years, the cash flows, we've been kind of in the red for a couple of years. And I brought this up before, our fleet service charge. I've been working the last couple of years to slowly get that to where it should be. Couldn't do it all at one time and give everybody a large increase all in 1 year. So that's part of our increase in revenues to try and make sure we balance out our budget for the year.
So Mayor and Commissioner, that other $1 million difference that we were talking about is the fleet services. There's going to be taking on a loan to get the roof and the boiler replaced out there, and the service charges.
Oh, Director Kanaki, if you don't mind, I might also add that we are having conversations with our financial advisor and bond counsel on taking a loan out for the roof replacement and the boiler out at the shop that's been needed for several years. And we're just working out all the details of that. We will be bringing that before the commission relatively soon with options for financing that loan. For demonstration purposes, the fleet fund is presenting this in their budget, but for accounting reasons, an internal service fund can't have debt service, so I've reconfigured that in our budget documents. But for presentation services here, it works to show that it's a little over $1 million loan, but we'll be accounting for it separately in a debt service fund for the final budget presentation. So thank you for letting me interject.
Questions from the commission? Please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Director Knappe. I'm not sure this is in the budget anywhere, but what percentage of the current fleet is electric? We know?
Very small percentage.
And is that as a result of the fact that some of it's specialized equipment that it's not available, or is it just like what percentage of vehicles could theoretically be electric or hybrid?
I could give you a number, but it'd probably just be a total wild guess. But part of the challenges with the electric vehicles is the charging stations. It's the battery longevity during the winter. So as the commission knows, we have that electric sweeper. It takes up an entire bay through the winter because it can't be stored outside. If it gets cold, it cries at night. So it stays inside. So we had to run an entire service for that so that we could charge that at night. So when we get roughly 7 to 8 hours of sweeping, it takes 10 to 12 hours of charge time for that to be ready to go in the morning. So I think there's a potential for electric vehicles, but I think the technology for our climate isn't quite there yet because the batteries just don't handle the cold very well. I know they have garbage trucks. There's supposedly some electric plow trucks out there, but I haven't seen any readily available. What we were seeing a lot of is electric buses, electric sweepers, and then the electric passenger cars that are being used.
And hybrid.
And we have a lot of hybrids in our fleet. It's just that the fully electric, we don't have very high percentage in our fleet.
I might follow up on that later, but thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Please continue.
Moving on to transit. We'll be pretty quick on this one. Planning Commission, you guys have seen this one a couple of times already. No changes from anything that you've heard from us the last couple of times on transit. About a $2 million, pretty well balanced budget. And then we have had our increases in the allocations, mostly the TransAid allocation, which is state funding for elderly and disabled. So that was about $100,000 more for this next fiscal year. Still working on the transition to being a direct recipient from the FTA as part of the NPO process, the planning organization process. So again, hoping to make that switch in January, but mostly depending on the outcome of all the things that are put in place to do.
What was the reason that there was the increase in state and federal allocation?
Mayor and Commissioner Dean, I'm not sure why the allocation was so much more larger this year. They do, I assume that they got more funding.
Just something, one thing I just think we might all be concerned about is, I've seen this in some other places, other types of government budgeting, is that with all of the federal funds that so many different entities have received, which is awesome, and I'm excited that we've been so aggressive in pursuing federal dollars, but not becoming too reliant on funding that maybe for increases that might be more temporary, and we know for sure that legislation does not have sunset dates. And
so to your point, Commissioner, the increase in that one was a big part to the point that we were able to not ask for an increase on the city's contribution for the general fund this year.
So, there's no increase in fares this year. Status quo contributions from the city and county. Notable expenditures coming up. We're going to be looking at access control, security upgrades for been seeing an uptick in vandalism and harassment down at the transit facility, and then trying to reduce processing fees by switching to Tyler as a payment processor for our Spare app instead of the app that comes with Spare, which is charging a little bit more than we would like to see. Any other questions?
Please continue.
Okay, and not on accident at all, parking, last but not least. So again, here there was another error in the packet that was in there. The projections were right for fiscal year 24. but the amended budget had about 85,000 that we had reduced on those projects. The number was still in the line item in our capital equipment. So I fixed that number here. So going forward to next year, just about $2 million in expenses and about as close to a completely balanced budget as we can get, and just about $2 million in revenues as well. Our cash reserve has taken a hit the last few years, and a lot of that is on the revenue side. So in the last couple of years, our philosophy has been to hope that all of the available parking, as far as permits and things go, would be sold out. We've seen that in the past. The last couple of years, that hasn't been a reality. So if you were to look at our projections for revenues for FY24, they're obviously lower than what was budgeted. And so we've carried those forward to FY25 and our estimates for that. And so that.
Yeah. So no rate increases this year as we navigate the downtown discussions. And as Chris noted, we're trying to just look at this, what we're seeing as projected and using those instead of our optimistic view. So significant reduction in personnel costs. We eliminated the parking manager position this year to try to help the fund's financial situation. And, by not doing that, we would have been in the red this year. And then significant reduction in operating capital costs while awaiting the assessment. So we have contracted with the Walker Group out of Colorado to come up and assess our parking structures. And they'll give us a very detailed assessment and CIP plan along with that. So we didn't really want to budget anything. Well, we didn't really have the room to budget anything, but we didn't want to budget anything so that depending on what that assessment said, we could implement their recommendations versus maybe contradicting those recommendations. So be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Director Chappie. So I had reached out to you to ask what a very tentative budget might be for angled parking striping on Cruz Avenue that would allow for the opportunity for discussion for the possibly soon to be formed parking committee to consider some sort of proposal for employee parking downtown. And I think your estimate was 35 to 40,000. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's Mayor and Commissioners. I should have clarified with you. That's between 6th and Lawrence only. That's not the entire length of Cruz.
And how many spaces would that generate roughly?
I don't have that number for you, Commissioner.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Approximately.
It would double our parallel parking spaces right now. And I'm sorry, Mayor, I don't have that number.
I guess what I would, I understand there's not a lot of room in this budget. But I think since this would not be a pure cost, there would be some revenue that came from it, perhaps not equal to the cost of the striping. I wonder what the opportunity is to include some sort of a placeholder for whether it's, one of the floors of one of the existing garages that's underutilized or the striping project on Cruz Avenue that would allow the hopefully soon to be formed parking committee to have an opportunity to discuss options that are, that would actually exist. Is there a way to do that, understanding that right now this budget there's not a lot of wiggle room? That's deeply concerning in the background.
You can blame Chris for that.
You're trying to make me forget what I'm saying. I don't know what our options are, and I suspect we cannot use the gas tax RSA dollars, so we can't do that. But is there a way to put a line in with a possible revenue stream that would give us something to work with for the hopefully soon to be formed parking committee?
I got an answer for you, Commissioner, but Director Dan is anything I like it.
You better don't give it.
That's why.
The general fund is allowed to give money to any other fund. So, Mayor and Commissioners, it's not so much that we couldn't use either street or gas tax money to do the street portion of something like that. It's more along the lines that it wouldn't be a street project to do that for, and so ideally, parking really should pay the costs of it being done. So I don't know if there's more of a good answer to that.
I guess, Mr. Mayor, if I might pull up, is there an option to include a striping project in this budget? And if so, how do we do that?
Mayor and Commissioners, we don't have a lot of wiggle room. Like I said, this is just day-to-day operations and, you know.
So, Mayor and Commissioner, we could absolutely put something in there. It would take our.
He's your director.
No, we could. We'd be deficit spending, pulling out of cash reserves at this point, to which we are already below the required threshold per our budget policies for us to meet. So our cash levels at this point already don't meet the requirement that we should have.
So who's going to answer Commissioner Reed's question?
There. I think that there's a way to figure it out.
Okay.
Maybe not right here this afternoon, but you haven't adopted it. So why don't we let us talk amongst ourselves and we'll make sure that it's on the list when it's all and we'll communicate with you prior to that so that you're aware of that.
Maybe part of that discussion, I could include the idea of like establishing a certain parking garage floor or area. My only concern about the striping piece is that it requires parking enforcement, and the parking garages, you're paying for, it's automatic, the enforcement based on the arms. And so I that's the only piece when we've already cut a parking enforcement position. Do we have the manpower and funding to actually enforce, only employees in these parking spots, whereas maybe a parking garage solution, the parking arms do that for us.
Well, let them investigate and get back to us on that. Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Director Kanofsky, in terms of vacancy savings, what do we see? What have we saved by eliminating the parking manager position?
Mayor and Commissioners, we got into the black.
Commissioner, it was about 75,000 overall between eliminating the position and then sort of bumping up a couple of the administrative positions that we had to take on some of the duties of manager. It was about 75 or so.
And Mr. Mayor, if I might just to follow on Commissioner Dean's point, and I do appreciate that we will look at it. I'm amenable to whatever options we have. I would just like there to be an option for consideration this budget cycle for this issue, and hopefully to soon inform parking committee if possible, whatever that looks like. I'd be happy to see something.
Please continue.
That's for our budget, Mayor.
Thank you. Oops. Mr. Danielson, which next?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm now gonna just let you know that I think that we're scheduling a small break at 4 o'clock. In between meetings, but at this time, unless you want to just power through, I think that there was the clerk had originally scheduled a break at 4 because it was a 6-hour meeting, but that's up to you.
Just want to stay at 6 hours. No, I'm joking. No, I'm sure we can continue until.
Yes, we can. I just wanted to make that note now before we get into the Parks, Recreation, and Open Lands budget presentation. And I will turn it over to Director Smith at this time.
Doug, back in marching order from Dr. Vance.
Yes, sir. Mayor, Commissioners, we're here today to speak to 15 budgets within the Parks Department. With your permission, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to go over each of them and field questions at the end.
Sure.
And feel free to interrupt at any time. And with the help of Amanda Opitz, she can add a
Time is 4:30. For those online, we are having some technical difficulties in terms of hearing you. So we would advise that you type out in the chat your question, if you have any, during the public comment. And the clerk will read your comments into the record. So until they can get it straightened out, please just type your comments into the chat feature and it will be read into the records. Thank you. And Director Danielson, you had a request. Please forgive me. Is that you?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. We, on the agenda, we have, both the Helena Tourism Business Improvement District and the, Business Improvement District that are on the agenda to present their annual work plans and budgets to the commission. They, don't have a PowerPoint, but those documents are in your packet. At the request of, the districts, we're going to have the Tourism Business Improvement District go first, and then the Business Improvement District after that. So at this point, I'm gonna turn it over to Teresa, and she's the Director of the Tourism Business Improvements.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioner. It's Andrea Opitz.
Oh, sorry,
That's okay. I knew this was for the record. As Sheila mentioned, you have the work plan and budget in your packet. Before diving into this year's plan, I just want to touch on some highlights from FY24 because they really do kind of drive a lot of our efforts moving into FY25. So we dedicated quite a bit of time to working on an overarching brand strategy for Helena. And the reason that we did that with a variety of our community partners, including the Helena Area Chamber of Commerce, the Business Improvement District, Montana Business Assistance Connection, the city, and we also included a variety of stakeholders and business owners. And the real purpose behind that was to be really intentional and functional in our efforts. We wanted to ensure that we were attracting high value and low impact visitors that really want to experience Helena like a local. And out of that process came a couple of imperatives. One was brand imperative, and that was we wanted to ensure that we were marketing with authenticity. And we had the recommendation that it would be extremely helpful for our community to focus on public relations efforts. In terms of the community imperative, there was a lot of, they wanted to ensure that we are aligning all our stakeholders together and to ensure that we were supporting the visitor experience. So not just only attracting visitors, but ensuring that once they get here, they have a real quality experience. The brand values that kind of surfaced and bubbled to the top of this process were how inspirational our citizens and community was, and how rich in history and the cultural heritage that Helena offers. And then with the brand voice, it really highlighted that we're interconnected, unexpected, and we really hang our hat on being Montana's hometown. So with that said, moving into FY25, we will continue to follow our mission of promoting and preserving Helena as a unique destination. We do that through a variety of means. One of the main ones is through our marketing efforts, heavily focusing on leisure travel. That obviously is a big one for us. We will continue to work to attract sports and tournaments, you know, with us being centrally located and quite a bit more affordable than other Montana communities. We want those tournaments here, and we want to host. And then finally, looking at the public relations piece. So kind of some of the new things moving forward that we will be focusing on, and some of the priorities. are helping to support airport progression, both through marketing and public relations efforts. One of the huge opportunities that we see on the horizon is the opening of the Montana Heritage Center, slated for November of 2025. We want to be a close partner with them, and they are heavily focusing on finishing the project and ensuring that the building, the build is complete. But we want to help to spread the word about how awesome it's going to be to have this world-class destination, to have this gathering place, and a place to really tell the stories of Montana and all our people. And so what's really amazing about this whole process is here we've gone through the brand strategy process, and now we're in a place where we can really lean into that to help promote and market this primary attraction really for the entire state of Montana. So with that said, the final priority that's going to help us with efforts is, for the first time in quite a while, we just have not had the budget to really lean into securing data to help drive our marketing and PR effort. So we will be purchasing and investing in the Zartico Destination Operating System. That is going to help us on a couple of levels. It's going to help us visualize trends in movement, in different consumer spending, in events, and it's also going to help us pinpoint opportunities to fine-tune demand and look at product development. So I can see that particular platform maybe being beneficial not only to our other community partners, but also to the city in general. So more to come on that. And then moving, I guess, finally, I would say, with all of our efforts, we certainly understand that destination management doesn't happen in a bubble. It really requires that coalition of many organizations and interests working towards that common goal, which is really competitiveness of our destination and sustainability. And so with that said, we will be closely working with our partners at the city, partners at the Helena Chamber, the Helena Business Improvement District, Montana Business Assistance Connection, our regional partners, Southwest Montana, and the State Office of Tourism. Really, at the end of the day, the ultimate goal is to increase the quality of life for residents, and that is what we will continue to strive for. If you look at the budget, I would say that the budget definitely aligns with our work plan. Two pieces that I would like to point out are under the marketing line item and under the publicity line item. That just, does highlight both the paid and the earned media that we plan to garner. And then that marketing budget is a little bit higher than normal, but that does consist of that data platform that we're purchasing. So just knowing that a large chunk of that is going towards the data. And then finally, I would kind of back to that visitor experience and the resident quality of life. I would like to invite all of you to experience one of our other two new history offerings. One is a new open audio tours app that we just completed. It's one of the first in the state, and it will provide it's an experience for you to or it's a way for you to experience history at your own pace at any time. And then the second one is our friends and partners at the Foundation for Montana History. They are adding an additional tour to the 2024 summer season, which is a Rediscover Reader's Alley. So now weekdays, we are fortunate to have a guide in Reader's Alley from 11 to 2 to capture visitors and residents on site, and it's a short condensed version that will hopefully help to have them secure the after 5 o'clock tours that are full length tours. So I think those are two new exciting offerings for the community, and I would invite you to take advantage of them. And with that said, are there any questions on the budget?
Commissioners? Please.
You might have to, can tell me if I'm off base with this question. I'm curious, so with your budget, since it's derived from our room assessment on hotel rooms, does that correlate? I mean, I know that something I hear all the time is all of our hotels are very full a lot of the time for a lot higher prices than before. Are those increases correlate to an increase in the revenue from that assessment?
They do not. So the assessment is based on occupancy, not on the average daily rate. And so regardless of what they're paying, that it's still a flat $2 fee. Yeah.
Is there, I mean, I guess, is that dictated by NCA, or is there room to have a conversation about that so we can do more?
About increasing?
Yeah.
It's a great question. And, you know, something, it is a goal that I think needs to be looked at for the next year. Right now, a lot of our competitors, you know, the top 7 destinations across the state of Montana, they're all going from, currently Butte is the only destination with a $1 assessment fee, but the majority of them are at 2 and are going to 4. In addition to Billings is already at 4, Kalispell is headed to 4, and the rest are very close behind. So I think it is a great opportunity for us to leverage additional dollars. I wanted to see the other larger populated cities make that move first. And I would just add to that there is a unique situation going on in Bozeman where they, in addition to the Tourism Business Improvement District, they are looking at starting a special improvement district, and that would be anywhere from an $8 to a $10 fee on overnight stays to help potentially build out kind of a sports area at the fairgrounds, at sports conference center. So with looking at how steep the competition is, I think it's critical that I work to encourage and have the plan in place to help show what we would do and how we would dedicate those funds.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Mayor. I would just say, keep us surprised, because I think that's something that, you know, we have a lot of impact in tourism, but it's difficult when it's not based on a percentage, it's a dollar.
Sure.
It's difficult to keep up.
I appreciate the question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question about, I think you touched on IC plan, sorry, words. The Historical Society and the sort of corridor from there to downtown and sort of bringing the between the two. I know that there's going to be some I've seen in the walking wall. Is there a specific plan to work with the Historical Society as they move towards opening to connect, you know, different parts of our community with that project?
By all means, yes. We have been in, we've had one discussion thus far, but again, back to kind of our coalition of stakeholders, including the BID and the chamber and the city. Yeah, there is a long-term plan to look at 3 things specifically, looking at infrastructure and that corridor and the connectivity piece. Number 2, looking at amenities, like do we have enough restaurants and businesses to support that, and how can we assist in supporting those additional businesses? And then 3, what is that communication marketing plan? They're in the process of completing their phase 2 of their marketing plan. Will be cross promoting in terms of using both our video and photo assets and leaning into theirs as well. So that the great thing is that we're both working with Sovereign Creative, so the same look and feel of how we're promoting is going to mirror each other. And then yeah, I mean, we're all very vested and see this as a huge opportunity. And while November 25 seems a little bit off, we know how quickly it can happen.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's open. Like I said, I'd like to just add one piece. You know, a long-term plan, when you say gift shop, would be for a variety of us entities to be located in one space. As much as I love Reader's Alley, I see a natural fit of having a visitor center located on the main corridor. And for us to, you know, all of us entities to be able to just more closely collaborate and partner and expand our efforts, you know. There's, I mean, the projections prior to the expanded expenses on the museum, they were expecting 75,000 additional visitors a year. But that was when it was at, I think, 60 million. At the 110 plus million, I think we're at now, they're believing there could be 150 additional visitors each year. Plus they have the endowment for middle school students to be able to visit. So we think it could be big and we want to be ready.
And just to follow up, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Listening to you talk about those numbers and the plan, I'm curious about, and this might circle back to other people's budgets, I'm really sorry, but the impact on the walking mall and maintenance for the walking mall. If we're directing more and more people down there, and you know, there's sort of a concerted effort. Are we anticipating increases in maintenance to the walking mall? I'm not sure which budget that falls in. I did not see it jump out at me in any of the budgets. So have we anticipated that? I'm not sure who I'm directing that question to.
Mayor and Commissioner Reed, so the walking mall itself, the maintenance for that is incorporated into the parks maintenance budget. It's considered a part of the parks budget. It's not specifically called out in their parks. It's part of their total operating and maintenance costs of all the parks within the city. In regards to demonstrating an increase to that maintenance, I am not sure if our Director Smith is still online, but maybe he could speak to that that comment or that question.
Absolutely. Is it working? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Right. Thank you, Director Danielson. Commissioner, mayors, commissioners. At this time, and it's funny, I just received a question from a citizen in the room regarding who to call in regards, as it was formerly a street, now it's a closed right of way and become a city park. Streets permits alcohol, parks permits food trucks, parks maintenance is doing the plowing because we have smaller equipment. So there's a lot of, you know, cross-pollination between departments and responsibilities. But as a city, we intend to come up with a plan for the future. And those are all high-level meetings that'll be happening in the next 6, 12, 18 months. But as of right now, you know, we work with streets closely throughout the city, and the walking mall is an anomaly, a little unicorn within the city, and a great place, a great space for our community. So to answer your question, we're going to continue with the level of maintenance. As far as repair and rebuild, those are things that are going to be capital improvement projects we need to discuss.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Are you done?
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. And we have Megan Helton. She's the interim director of the Business Improvement District, and she'll be presenting that work plan and budget. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, thank you. Yes, Megan Helton, interim director at the Helena Business Improvement District. I am 2 months into this position, and I appreciate the grace and kindness that most people in this room have shown me. It was a bit of an unexpected situation. So 2024 was a bit of a transition for our downtown organizations with the dissolution of DHI. And as I go through our work plan, I'll address where the BID has stepped up to take on some of those roles and how that's reflected both in our work and our budget. So running down or going through the programs as we all generally know them, we take care of flowers and landscaping in downtown. This year, we have 100 flower baskets and 30 flower barrels that will be going up between June 10th and 11th, so just 2 weeks from now. We also maintain 11 landscape beds along 300 and 400 blocks of last chance gulch. Those were weeded just this week. That cost about $10,000 to just put the flowers out. And this year we tried the sponsorship program on, and we had 28 individual donors to that program and raised $2,500 to support our flowers in downtown. We also do the holiday decorations in 2024, or I guess technically 2023. We purchased and installed 3 new lighted garlands that went across Last Chance Gulch. We've added 4 more garlands to that for this year. We also had 9 lighted snowflakes last year, and we are adding 12 more snowflakes to go up around town. We are not going to purchase any more in this fiscal year. We think that that purchase from last year sets us up for at least another year with holiday decorations. Sanitation is another big program for the BID. We maintain 27 trash cans in the downtown district, and we own them as well. John Murdy, who's next to us, you will see around town. He cleans them and empties the trash and maintains all of that for us downtown, and it's a huge job that we're very grateful for. In 2024, we also rented and maintained a portable toilet in Constitution Park. That has gone very well. John also helps maintain that, and we see it used every day by citizens throughout our community. We are hoping in 2025 we are going to be able to put in a permanent downtown restroom in Constitution Park. We are working with the Parks Department on that and waiting final approval through the Parks Board and Parks Department to see that happen. I understand the Commission has already allocated money towards that program. We have also allocated money, and so has Lewis and Clark County. So we're really hopeful that that will all come together into a final product, hopefully this year. And we, we'll address that in a little bit. Graffiti removal, we will continue to provide that service downtown. We're sticking with the same contractor from last year. There's a slight increase in the budget, which just reflects their increase in trip charges. They come over from Bozeman to provide that service for us. We maintain 144 banners downtown. You'll see right now we have Milton's Man or Prickly Pear Land Trust Race. Their banners are up from a couple weeks ago. We have Governor's Cup coming up. Their banners are up, and then we'll switch out to Man Gulch anniversary celebratory banners in 2 weeks, I believe, right after Governor's Cup is over. We will also have our seasonal summer banners that go up, and then in the winter we'll switch over to holiday ones. Organizations, businesses that want to hang banners can contract with us. That's a program that I don't think has been advertised very clearly in the past, and I plan on working on that being a more available program for our community. We manage a facade and parklet grant program. So our facade program is a one-to-one match of up to $5,000 per project for facade improvements. That is typically, just want to think about outside of the storefront. That's your facade. We, in 2024, had 12 applications and were able to award 9 facade grants. That's one of the bigger years for this program. And so we decided for 2025, we would increase the funding for that program from 15,000 to 25,000. So that can fund quite a few projects for 2025. We do still have a Parklet grant program, but we need to work out some intricacies in that to encourage businesses to continue to apply for it. With the dissolution of downtown Helena, we were concerned that downtown Helena would lose the events that have traditionally been held in the downtown corridor. And so the BID developed an event grant starting in February or March of this year, 2024. We allocated $10,000 to that program. We have awarded all $10,000 already. To support events, everything from soapbox derby to gold rush days, the art walks that are going on, a puppet show that I did not know occurred in Pioneer Park. It's very exciting to see our community step up and community leaders take on these events and have it be a more organic driven event culture in downtown. Since we were so successful and so quickly with that grant program, we've raised that budget line item to 15,000 for next year, so we can award up to 15 events. Well, actually more than that, but up to 15,000 in 2025. Business development, we have traditionally set aside some funds, a small amount of 5,000 to support business development and incubation in downtown. We are working on turning that money into a grant that attracts businesses and either business growth or new businesses in downtown. A couple ideas that are being floated out there. So we don't have that developed yet, but we're really looking to use that money to help people open their business downtown, make it attractive to do so. Marketing. The BID is responsible in our city's master plan for promoting downtown Helena. And so with that, we have a new website that will be launched this summer. And we have a pretty active social media page. We have a billboard that's going up and some radio ads that will also be purchased throughout the summer and into the holidays. And that's general promotion for downtown activities. So whether that's eating, drinking, shopping, creating, just coming downtown and enjoying our downtown for our whole community. We also have a monthly newsletter that includes business updates, as well as business openings or changes around downtown. This has become a big piece of what the BID does with DHI dissolving. So we hold monthly small business roundtable meetings where businesses can come, they can bring issues forward, they can work together, hear what's going on downtown, share events and news, and those have been very successful. Previously, those were the DHI membership meetings. They are open to everyone in the public and anyone who is interested in investment in downtown. With that have grown certain areas of interest, parking being one. We've been very involved in parking discussions as well as permitting discussions around events downtown. So we will continue to listen to our downtown businesses, hear what their needs are, and work with the city on how we can find solutions together. We maintain a we maintain a reserve for large expenditures. I put that backwards and it's confusing. And we will maintain this reserve for projects such as installing the downtown toilet, and looking forward into next summer and working with the chamber and Visit Helena on how to promote downtown as part of the Heritage Center opening. So those are two projects that we see that reserve really coming in handy for. In addition, as we look through the budget, the biggest change, everything has stayed the same, is that we're going to add one full-time employee. Currently, I'm the only full-time employee, and our other folks are out doing the hard, good work of maintaining our flowers and our garbage cans and hanging decorations. So we really see the need as Helena grows, and as we want to put more focus on our downtown, that we need a second person in this organization to really make sure it does grow. So we have a full-time person budgeted for 2025. Hopefully we can get that up and going soon. But that's our biggest change. Because of that, we will have to tap into our reserve to pay for part of that employee for next year. The hope is that with 2 full-time people, we can really develop our fundraising and sponsorship programs to cover that gap. So the gap for next year is about $23,000. We think that it's very possible to fundraise to make that a sustainable budget line item. Tried to go quickly through that, but also explain things. So let me know if there are any questions.
Next question from the commission.
Mr. Mayor, just a brief comment. I just want to congratulate Megan on how much work she did in just the first couple of months. Mr. Denby left some very large shoes to fill, and I think that she's done that. It's really well, and especially when there's been a lot of things going on. So thank you, and it has not gone unnoticed. I think that I can fairly say, as the commission member on the BID, and I think other BID members would probably agree, just like the commission, it is a board of a lot of big personalities and opinions, and I think you manage all of it really well. And I always appreciate your willingness to answer questions and be helpful. So thank you.
Thank you. Director Danielson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. So I think next on the agenda, we're just going to have a little wrap up of our fiscal 25 budget presentation. Just to recap, next slide, please. All the divisions to date have now presented their budgets to the commission. At our last meeting, we had some commission decision points that we have incorporated into the budget. A $1 million contribution from the general fund to the general capital fund for general government capital projects. We've incorporated a 3.5% COLA into all funds, with the exception of the International Association of Firefighters. That contract is still under negotiation, and so no adjustments have been made for the outcome of that contract yet. We incorporated $230,000 for loan programs. That's for $150,000 for the sidewalk program for next year, and $80,000 for the renewable energy loan programs. Increase the Humane Society contribution up to the 6% that the commission believes that they wanted to support. Their 6% increase. We've incorporated $52,750 of community nonprofit support. That includes $20,000 for the Helena Airline Alliance, $20,000 to Helena Area Community Foundation, $5,000 each for the Symphony and MBAC, $1,000 each for the Sun Run and Big Sky Pride, and $7,000 for the Community Services Program, and I think $750 to the Capitol Band are included in that. And then again, and the $7,000 to the Community Services Program that was committed at the joint meeting. At this time, the HCC has indicated they will get their budget recommendations to you by the 30th. Next slide. So, and I will tell you that, as from the time I posted this to now, we're still making minor adjustments to the budget. Nothing material, but just minor. So these numbers might change a little bit by the time I post your packet tonight. The estimated beginning cash balance for all funds is around $63 million. We're budgeting $99.6 million in revenues, $104.3 million in expenditures, which leaves revenues less expenditures of $4.7 million. And then we also have some other cash outlays related to the loan program funds. So they're not technically recognized as an expenditure, or revenue, they flow through balance sheet accounts. And so that's what that represents as far as cash balances, with an estimated ending cash of $58 million. Transfers in and out of funds are 4.6 million. Those include the various transfers that, like, as I spoke, the general fund transferring $1 million to the general capital fund, or the 450,000 transfer to the transit fund. And then the between the enterprise funds, they transfer, services in between those funds. So that's what that represents. And I can go into it in a little bit more detail if you have any questions on that. And just a summary for the general fund, beginning estimated cash at 5.9 million, budgeted revenues almost 29 million, budgeted expenditures 30.3 million, and that also includes that use of cash reserves for capital and some of the other decision points that the commission made, leaving revenues less expenditures of $1.3 million. Gives us an estimated ending cash balance of 4.56 million. Our targeted reserve is 4.4 million, which leaves a little bit in excess of what our targeted reserve is $112,000. On the next slide, I just wanted to point out what the 1.3 million deficit was. It's the contribution to the capital program, the 230,000 to the loan programs, 52,750 to nonprofits. I had to add an additional 4,200 for the Humane Society. The $4,300 I had to add to actually the finance budget for the potential of having to renew our licensing software. The Tyler Technologies is currently working on the configuration of our licensing data conversion, and they're a little bit behind with that. And so we're hoping to not have to pay that money, but I need to incorporate it in there just in case we have to renew our legacy software for a few months in order to continue our licensing operations. And then the balance went to health insurance and COLA adjustments with the 3.5% that the commission had a decision point on. And so at this time, I'm happy to take any questions or address any comments or proposals from the commission, and then we can look at next steps from there.
Just a couple comments. One, I guess for the public listening, the loan programs are the sidewalk loan program and the renewable energy loan program. A comment I wanted to make on the cost of living adjustment, the COLA. I know as a body, everyone threw out a different number. Some were at 4%, some were at 3.5%. The county is at 3.5%. The state is at 4%. I'm just going to put it out there that once August comes and we get our actuals from DOR and we know what our actual revenue coming in is, and potentially if our investment revenue continues to be what it is, potentially, we'll have more there. In August, before we adopt our September budget, I definitely am going to see if the commission is willing to move to that 4% COLA. I'm glad we're at least at 3.5% and competitive with the county, but given the amount of vacancies that are currently at the state and the competitiveness with which the state is trying to recruit employees from a number of agencies, we have worked so hard the last few years to rebuild our staff, and if we do not have providing services directly to our citizens, we're really not doing the job. And we are a people business. And I think it's critically important that we pay our people the market wage and fairly. And so I'm still in favor of a 4% cost of living adjustment. And we'll bring that in August once we have those actuals from the Department of Revenue and all of the rest of our assessment set.
Any other comments?
Thank you. I'm a little bit jumping ahead, but it is a comment related to the next steps, if that's okay. There was a question that came up a week or two ago about the possibility, we had a previously cost share with the county on a housing navigator position. And I think we were still waiting to see what the possibilities were there because we received a request from a nonprofit representing a group of nonprofits who needed match for a very, very large program. Run into Commissioner Hunthausen in the hallway, and he said it's still a possibility from the county. So I think we still have a bit of an open question on our ability to include part of a housing navigator within community development, which I did not hear back on. So that was an open question for me. Whether or not we can work with parking on the possibility of including some funding for a solution is an open question. And we are getting the HCC recommendations on May 30th. So I'm wondering what the possibility is of moving preliminary budget instead of Monday, which I still feel like there's a couple of questions out there, which I appreciate it's preliminary, not final. But I'm wondering if there is the opportunity to move it back one Monday in order to hear, review, and sort of process the HCC recommendations before we adopt the preliminary.
Mayor and Commissioner, in regards to the housing navigator and the parking funding, we have until the end of June to September to adopt a final budget. So I think that there's definitely opportunity there to explore whether the housing navigator program can come to fruition, and if the county would like to also help support that, I think that will give us ample time to be able to get with the county and come up with a recommendation or an answer to the commission in regards to the funding for the and I believe you're referring to the horizontal striping for parking. We will have transportation services look into that, and we can certainly bring that back. In regards to pushing the preliminary budget meeting off one, that would be up to the commission to, I guess you'd have to present a special meeting. You'd have to create a special meeting. You'd have to, because it is a public meeting that we have to bring that to.
Yeah, it wouldn't be pushing it off a week, pushing it off a couple weeks. And I think that the same logic applies that if the commission, well, you adopt a preliminary budget right now, I know that there's potential of a parking amendment, potential discussion on the code going from 3.5 to 4. Where are we at with the housing navigator? Commissioner, I just got that in the moment. I know it's a lot of people talking. If the recommendations that come from the HCC, you still haven't adopted the final budget until the end of August, September. So there's that whole period of time. And at that point, then we'll know what taxable value are, et cetera, before you finalize the budget. So
if I might just follow up, so is it possible to move it from the 3rd to the, I guess it would be the 17th? Does that alter a timeline in some way or no?
So Mayor and Commissioner, so on the 3rd is when the city manager delivers the presentation of the budget to the commission. There's no resolution. There's no resolution of intention at that particular meeting. It is just the presentation of the preliminary budget to the commission for consideration. The commission at that time can request that the city manager adopt or amend that budget and then bring back the preliminary budget as a resolution on the 17th. We need to adopt a preliminary budget by the end of June. So if we can't adopt it on the 17th, and a special meeting would have to be called in order to adopt the preliminary budget by the end of June 30th, so that the city can have preparations to continue its operations.
Okay. Are you done, Director Danielson?
I am.
Thank you.
Oh, well, I'm sorry, I apologize. You know, the next step, we talked about the meetings coming up and then we'll be calculating our assessments and be bringing some rate changes to the commission in July and August. And then September 9th is the adoption of the final budget at that point. And that is all I have. Mayor.
Any other questions for the deputy? Okay, at this time, is there anyone from the public wishes to address the commission?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, my name is Ben Kuiper, Chair of HCC. I just wanted to clarify on the presentation, it said the 30th, you'll have recommendations. That's when we're voting on them. Our meeting's at 7. We'll probably go till 9 if not past. So you probably won't have recommendations until Friday the 31st. We might need to do some format provisions for that, just so that you're aware. Regarding the conversation that just went on, we're prepared to meet the calendar that the commission has already set. It just depends on if you want more time to review our recommendations. We can work with the current timeline. And if we do miss anything in the preliminary budget recommendations that you were hoping to get a recommendation on, please let us know. We can include that in the recommendation for the final budget in September. So, thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. Any others?
Good afternoon in the room. Anything about that? Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I would like to start with an apology for my dress. No disrespect intended. I was doing something else, and some alarming news was brought to my attention that I wanted to bring here. And truly, it's been a very enlightening discussion from all of you. I do a lot of outside the box management style consulting, and so before I even get to the point I came for, I would like Commissioner Dean, Business Improvement District, and some of these folks to think about some things that I heard here today that I had no intention of speaking on. You're speaking a cost of living increase between 3.5 and 4%. You're speaking of 150,000 new visitors. Those things start to kind of intersect at some point, and there's a pretty what's the word? Controversial idea, policy that you might consider to alleviate some of these cost of living increases from 150,000 people. How do people who come to your town sleep at night? They don't stay in hotels anymore. They stay in places people need to live, called Airbnbs. So perhaps it's time for the city to consider some options to house the people that live here, the staff that live here. So the cost of living increase next year is an 8% on these Airbnbs that should be rentals are all full. These houses that a nice little house over here behind the fitness center and Holiday. It was 680 square feet for $340,000. And they're just going to buy that up and rent it out as an Airbnb. But that's the kind of cost of living you're looking at. I live in an apartment bigger than that. 680 square feet. I don't even know what you do with that. So when you're talking the brilliant, wonderful zero-based budgeting, long projections, great policy, there's some things you need to think outside of that too, to address things 5 years down the road or 2 years down the road. And that's also one of the things why I'm here in my socks and sandals today. It's something else. And I was getting hot food, hot and cold water, and for cleaning and drinking, soap and warm clothes for folks who don't have a place at all. And they're not even allowed in God's love anymore because it's, as some of us discussed, it is a absolutely enormously high barrier shelter. The discretion they can use to eliminate people from having a shower or a meal is a little out of hand, and the interplay between the city and county and them needs to be looked at for that. They need to maybe have some discussions there. But in my spare time, as I can do my part, I try to bring some food and warm clothes to these people, as it's been a horrible spring. These folks are freezing out there. I mean, it's May and I'm cold, and I have insulation. So just this week, I've been going for a few weeks as the spring dragged on, and it's been very tough. But just this week, people have been telling me they haven't eaten for days because they're not allowed in God's love. And I know the commission has worked their tails off on this issue through the winter. We had that whole fiasco with buying out under the work you had done and others in the community. There was a place for the winter, and now they need a place. I mean, it's cold today. It's probably going to be 90 in 3 weeks, and the humidity gets worse all the time. We need to start helping these people. And yet again, I didn't have any interest or understanding of the work you do, but I think it ties in directly with what's going on downtown, that you're talking about a $8 or $10 bed tax on people who come in, these 150,000 people. Brilliant. Let's find a solution for downtown. There's businesses down there. There's a Chamber of Commerce. There's lots of downtown people who want to help. We need to get together, the commission leaders in the community, and throw a buck on there. Instead of $10, let's make it an $11, $12 tax on that bed. Let's put in place maybe a grandfathering in of Airbnbs and then a cap. Let's find some solutions here for housing that, I grew up in Bozeman. I went to the University of Montana, Missoula. And Helena is this far from being that. It's a small town. It's starting to become fun. It's not Bozeman or Missoula, but it's there. Downtown's great. It's vibrant. The walking mall is getting there. Like, you got a former governor opening up a bar. Like, people want to come here and talk to him. Like, it's a great place to be. It's a small town, but it's not going to be that for long. And you have a lot of work, and you're going to run out of money if you're going to keep paying people to work for you with the cost of living increases. And these folks, you're not going to have the tourism money if you don't find them a place to stay. There's going to be those sorts of intersections that we don't want, that law enforcement doesn't have time for. And I spoke to the chief of police, and he's great. He follows the rules and the law, and that's all he can do. But it's up to you to tell him what to do. And there is one thing going on. There is the 8th Amendment, which you're going to be like, how does that affect anything that goes on in the city council up there? And it starts out.
We're usually giving 2 minutes for public comments.
Yep. The 8th Amendment states excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed. That's not the third clause, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. So how does that affect any of what I've discussed today? There's a case at the 9th Circuit Court of Appeals, City of Grants Pass versus Johnson. The 9th Circuit held that cruel and unusual punishments clause prevents cities from enforcing criminal restrictions on public camping unless the person has access to adequate temporary shelter. In this case, the 9th Circuit extended Martin to a class-wide injunction prohibiting the city of Grants Pass from enforcing its public camping ordinance even through civil citations. That decision cemented a conflict with the California Supreme Court in the 11th Circuit. They've upheld similar ordinances and entrenched a broader split on the application of the 8th Amendment to purportedly involuntary conduct. So there's an injunction against enforcing taking down people's tents. That's what that says. At the 9th Circuit, the highest court of the land in Montana, because good luck getting the Supreme Court with anything. There's 80 cases a year they take. This is going to be the last. This is going to be the precedent. So there's currently an injunction against asking the police to take down these camps, which I talked to the police chief about some things that I'm not going to mention names. These folks have been threatened by certain white staff at God's Love, people of color, unhoused people of color, physical violence. They're not going to go to the police. Their job every day is to live their life, stay alive. They don't have a day job. They're just staying alive. And the police, they usually try not to bug them because they don't want to intersect with them. That's usually when things go wrong for them. So I brought that to the chief of police. But also a sheriff, 2 men in a sheriff's vehicle and a city policeman stopped by this camp and told the people they would be throwing away all their possessions. Chief of police said that's not the city. policy. Why sheriffs would be doing that? Perhaps they got a bug up their bum. Who knows? But this is why I'm here dressed like this, because I was literally helping them sweep their camp and giving them something to clean themselves and eat. So this is that sort of, like I said, management consultant outside the box, like start working outside there, and the folks over here who, you know, are gonna make Helena the next big town in Montana. I mean, we know it's coming. Good thing you got a plan. But you got even more plans to do to find places for people to live and people who make an income, people who don't, all sorts of folks. So thanks for the time.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other? Yeah. Oh, yes, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Chris Averill, Averill. I'm the chair of the Lewis and Clark Helena Heritage Tourism Council. And I know this issue kind of pales in comparison with what we were just discussing, but I wanted to thank the city manager for calling some folks together to talk about the fire tower restoration project last week, as was discussed by Commissioner Logan. I think we have a broader understanding now based on the communication raised at the May 1st work session about the city's work to get to a contract with the awardee and some of the breakdown that happened there. I think hindsight is 20/20. Wish we've been able to have that conversation a little bit sooner. I think there's still some lingering questions about the timeline and you know why it was allowed to drag on for so long on by both parties. So that being said, as we look forward to the future, I appreciate the offer to have a certified letter sent. You know, we'll all retain hope that there's a way to salvage the current opportunity before us. But if not, I think a couple things to impart upon the commission and city staff is one, if there is a new RFP, we hope that there's the same level of detail and an eye towards the work necessary to restore the fire tower in a historically accurate manner. And if you need any direction, I think Commissioner Logan would be happy to provide it based on at least what is original. But you know, and I mean this sincerely, I know there are a lot of folks who can do the work. The question is who's going to do the work to the specifications that the symbol of the city would demand. And so we're hopeful that if there is a new RFP, that any of the requirements aren't loosened to the point where we're just sort of throwing up a new fire tower and calling it good. And secondly, I appreciate the city manager's offer to keep us all in the loop moving forward. And I think from the historic preservation community in the city, we look forward to engaging with you regularly and working with you to get to the right answers here so that we don't have a repeat of this in the future. So I would just say our door is always open. I know we are an advisory board to you. And so we, you know, recommend to you certain aspects, but we do have folks on the council who have a lot of experience in this area and are willing to lend that experience and expertise and also willing to be cheerleaders for the city with the broader public. So we appreciate your focus and attention on this as part of all of the things you do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any others? Commissioners, any final words? Madam Clerk, do you have any all right?
Mayor, I do have one hand raised online.
Volume okay now?
And theoretically, I can try.
Audio, okay. Let's see if we can listen to the person, please.
Have Kathy Mayfield online.
Kathy, we can put her through.
Mayor, she has her hand raised, but is.
Well, she had a chance. She was right in the room just now. Why did she leave? Oh.
It's not that we can't hear, it's that she's not speaking, so.
Kathy, would you put your comment in the chat box and the clerk will read it for into the record, please. Is that the only person online?
Okay.
Did she put the in?
Not that I can see.
Oh, she said,
Oh, no.
Okay, so
Sure.
sorry, I was trying to.
Okay,
do it
Kathy?
on my phone.
If you can hear us, you have the floor.
Okay, so, sorry, I must have
Okay.
accidentally hit the mute button or
Any
something
other
on my
person
phone.
has a comment? Any other
So
public comment?
so I didn't mean to comment, but of course we support the.
Madam Clerk? Is she writing it into the chat feature?
He's not.
That's right there.
I think it's,
Yeah. They can still hear her online. We just can't hear her in the room.
Okay. Yeah, she was here.
Apologize.
Do you have any other public comments besides Ms. Macefield?
No. I see no other hands raised, no other public comment online.
Do you know if she's typing her?
Yeah, that's not something I can see. It doesn't show me if she's typing.
Okay.
Sorry.
Any other comments? None? This meeting is adjourned.